No, it's like.
Tested?
it's like-
Do you, was it just the flu that was going around?
I didn't get tested, it was just a flu.
I'm gonna say-
Well, there's a flu that's going around that's every bit as bad, and people ask me, are you testing? And I'm like, why would I, what's the point? I don't care what it is, as long as it goes away. I'm like, well,
My son-in-law, we were sitting, and he was saying that the lines between their seats, because they all have that.
which hospital does it work at?
Providence.
Oh, my daughter works at CC MTG.
Well, he's not a medic, he works downstairs.
Yeah, my aunt actually used to work down in Gilly. She retired from there. And I want to make sure, I don't know, 5 years.
So I didn't do that. The point.
I was like, I don't care what it is, as long as I get better.
Yeah.
Get better, and I don't, yeah.
And I got better, that was good.
In there.
Idea.
You're gonna have a second part. Start.
Oh, well, I
Susan,
need a
what-
heated jacket.
Susan, what is
Heated jacket, please. Like a request.
Awesome. You hear us okay? Awesome. Great.
You okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Send out a hook or start
You don't
music
look
like
sick.
the Oscars when we need to shut up. Start singing. Start singing.
My wife reads fun me just when I am.
My husband always says, you sing my songs? When I talk, I go, yeah, let's leave it that way.
Right.
All right, Chuckles, can I?
That's right. Good evening to you.
Five of us are here, Austin's on the TV, and they've got about 2 minutes.
Dad, we're still waiting on Peter.
Okay, thank you.
And is he gonna join us? or
Josh is
like-
gonna join us, yeah. For a little bit, he's gotta go back into fire.
He's no help.
Think you'll be then.
How much room I could take over,
He won't have a lot.
be a little territorial here. That's so much with me, just because, just the way my brain works.
Does that make you a pen?
I don't have one, of course.
Okay.
I have.
No, Chad's got one. I'm trying to make a collection of a box.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come over your house and get some pens back.
I'm gonna say, you have to do a search warrant on my purse to find half of them, I think.
I forgot who it was that was no longer a council, they brought me 3-gallon bags, of just big steep clips.
I know someone who does that.
I read them back.
I know you do.
Line, I think.
Well, of course.
And Dan Jesse,
Brings them back.
I think he did it as well, didn't he?
yeah,
We want the city to
unfortunately,
say-
I use all the clips I get. My greenhouse demands clips everywhere.
Yeah, I wish I had a green thumb like that. My plants just look at me and go. "What do you want us to do?"
6:30. This is a public hearing regarding an increase in price for the building department as per state regulations. Is that right, Chad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the city council to hear this matter at this time? Seeing none. Does any councilor believe he or she has a conflict of interest? Hearing none. Chad, would you give us the staff report, or do you want someone else to do it?
I will hand it off to Angelina from the planning department, and then also we have Len Brogdon with us, who is our building official.
Okay,
So Angelina.
So, Hank is having to find the building fee schedule proposal. We haven't had a building fee increase in 13 years. And to meet state regulations, this adjustment should be entered to comply with state.
Ms. Hazelwood, can you talk a little bit, the county commission's taken over, and then also Austin being on TV, it's a little hard for me here.
A lot of these fees will be, some of them will be new introduced fees and then that are mandatory by the state. And then some of them are updates for terminology. We're going to be permitting and in that process, we found that we are in need of updating our fees and adding in fees that we do not have.
So essentially, this is about across the board, if we average everything out, it's about a 20 to 25% increase on most of our fees. What the team did is that they took a look at what it is that it takes to run our departments. And now that we've got some experience with having the department set up the way that it is, it kind of gives us an idea of where we're going. This will also, with these fees, help us remain solvent in the building department. And then there's a possibility of us as well, depending on how much building is left for us during this budget process, to also set up a reserve fund for our building department. And what that reserve fund would do is cover us in times where building does not have not enough building going on or what have you, that we can maintain a code or a building official and not lose them. Or anything else that might come up. So the state does recommend that we do a rainy day fund, if you will, or a reserve fund, so that we can maintain our level of service no matter what the market does for a few years anyway. So those are our intentions. The other things that can come out of this is that we can do a little bit more code enforcement once we're funded a little bit better within that department. And as that being one of our goals with the city, that's something we would like to accomplish. But with the market and the available buildable lands, we're just gonna have to see how things are going.
Dad, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but is something going on in the break room area?
No, what did you hear?
There is just a lot of background noise that is not usually there.
The copier was on.
Yeah, the copier was going off.
Okay, it wasn't that beeping noise though. It sounds just like somebody's rustling papers or stapling or something.
Gotcha, we'll be careful. How's it now? Is it good now?
Yeah, it's good now. Austin, are you good?
We'll be careful with our paper rustling.
Rustling, please. Oh my God. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's it for the staff report.
Yes, sir.
Is there any additional correspondence? I did not see anything in the packet, but if I'm missing something, please point it out to me. I don't believe I am.
We didn't receive anything.
According to Christie, we haven't received any.
Right, okay. So I'm calling for public testimony. Are there any presentations by proponents? Seeing none. Are there any presentations by opponents? Seeing none. I don't care to ask for any summary responses or anything like that. Well,
I have a question.
okay,
Maybe you guys can explain this to me. The uniform fee mythology. This looks like Greek to me.
It is. It's terrible. That's the state that created that.
Because I mean, I don't see any formula, you know.
There is, it's hidden in there.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So,
And we totally go off the state's mandate on figuring the fees, pricing out the fees. And, but yeah, there is a formula there.
okay.
okay, so we're going to close the public hearing for now. And this will continue under new business later tonight at the council meeting. Okay. Calling to order Gerhart City Council meeting for March 1st, 2023. And it's asking for a conflict of interest. Anyone with a conflict of interest?
No.
Thank you, Austin. Rita, you gotta know?
No.
Preston? Nope. Okay, I'm no. Planning Commission report is in your packet, I believe. Right? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We gotta go to the approval of minutes. I'm sorry, I'm skipping.
And Mr. Mayor, also, we need to talk about adding the resolutions.
You're absolutely
to
right.
that. I'm sorry, I didn't write that down for you.
That's all right. Okay, so addition to our agenda under new business are the resolutions 978 through
13, I think, or excuse me.
983. I'd like to add with consensus by the council to new business, these resolutions, they are to do with the building code increases. If I can get a yes.
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 Explain more.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so that's added to it. Now we're going to move on to the minutes. Are there any corrections to the regular meeting?
Not for me.
Can I get a motion?
I will give you a motion.
I will second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. It passes. Now on to the work session. I don't know, do we have to okay the minutes from a work session since it's not council? Well, I guess so. We have to sign it. Okay. All right, so can I get a motion or any corrections to the work session?
I have a correction.
Okay,
On page 2, at the very top, when it starts out, the second paragraph down, Administrator Sweet reiterated the need for city council's input on city memorial bench policies. Semicolon, however, wanted. I think there should be a he in there, it should say, however he wanted.
okay,
That's it.
that's it. Anybody else with a correction? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I will give you a motion.
I will second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion. It passes, accepted. And now mayor's report. All right. Geez. Planning Commission report. It's in your packet. There is no Planning Commission report. It's just here for me to get confused.
We will be having a meeting next month, and we're keeping them busy from this point for a little bit.
They didn't have a meeting last month. So no commission.
Thank you. Mayor's report. I can do this one. I met with Senator Jeff Merkley's Northwest representative. His aide is Betsy Murky. It's very close to Murky, but it's different. We talked about federal funds available for the city of Gerhart, and we are not in a position to apply for any, as we've not done any engineering for federal projects. Anything like the Salmon Superhighway Fund that we might be able to tap into because of our culverts. Areas like that, but she gave us a heads up and an email with some ideas of what we need to do. I also attended the town hall yesterday afternoon, which went really well. Thank you very much to everyone who came out. And to the counselors that showed up, it was very nice for the very first town hall. that I've had. Counselor reports, I'm going to go to Preston.
Well, Dan and I had a meeting with Chad the other day about what's going on down on Glen Avenue. What sort of resolution could come to, we've been getting a lot of pushback from constituents. So we're coming up with a plan as to, it's gonna be an explanation of what it is that we can do, which is about this much, right? In a situation that's this big. So we're working on coming up with a plan to inform the constituents what it is we can and cannot do.
Right, as long as we approach it with compassion. That's one thing that we need to make sure that we do is if we do anything with people that are having trouble with homes and living in trailers and RVs, we need to make sure we do it with compassion and thinking about the safety and security that they face in these situations. But thank you for that. Rita,
I have nothing.
thank you. Dana.
I finished the 4 FEMA classes, and I'm not surprised that he doesn't want to sit next to me tonight because they're when I went through it, I realized that even for me, it's difficult to understand what they're asking in some of the test questions. So as I was thinking about it today, I thought, you know, I'm gonna work with Christy to put some literature in your boxes. So when it comes time for you to go through that, make sure you have that in hand also. Go through it online, because I think you have to go through it online, the lesson plan, but when you get to the test taking, it'll be a little easier to understand, I think, if you also have the literature in hand. So I did that. I went to the League of Oregon Cities, Small Cities meeting in St. Helens and made some really nice contacts from the area. We all talked about what's going on in our cities, and we're all talking about the same problems. Everybody is, they wanted to Rochambeau for a city planner. You know, everybody's looking for staff. So, and they are going to have another one coming up in May. I'll make sure that everybody gets the dates if you're interested in that. I think that it would move us to at some point host one of those. They have the next 2 planned out, but if at some point in the future, if you would be amenable to hosting that, I will volunteer to host that in the future if y'all are okay with that. It's a group of, at this particular meeting, it was about 20 people. And they usually, LOC comes in and does a little bit of training. On this particular one, we watched the Friday afternoon, the legislative update. So that was it, but mostly it was about contacts. Also, I met with Wally and Andrew Stein about the pickleball and tennis court issue, and I know that you met with them also, that you had met with them. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh, I was gonna go to the budgeting class in Clackamas last week, but I didn't feel like really taking the chance on driving over the 26th. So I canceled that, but I did obtain some material again that we're gonna go through and see if there's anything valuable that you might want to spend some of your life reading. And if it is important or could be useful to you, we'll make sure it goes in your box.
Sorry.
How are you? Yeah.
One meeting to the next.
Okay. And then the last thing that I have to say is, it feels important for me to say this. I think this is Chief Bowman's last city council meeting with us. And I want to make sure that he understands how much and I'm not supposed to say we, but I think it's safe to say we, appreciate his service. You know, when you sign up for law enforcement, you're truly signing up for a thankless job. You don't expect to be voted prom king when you're going out and handling, you know, dealing with people at sometimes the worst moments in their life. You're just hoping you're not going to be removed from everybody's Christmas card list. And it takes a special kind of person to keep showing up for people who need you, but don't necessarily like you. So I think we owe a debt of gratitude to Chief Bowman because he has shown up for us for 40 years. That's pretty impressive. Yesterday, we had a town hall where people described the traits that they were looking for in our next police chief. And over again, people said they were looking for commitment. Well, I certainly hope our next police chief is as committed to Gerhard as Chief Bowman has been, because for 40 years, he's consistently put our city's needs before his own. People don't understand that when you sign up for law enforcement, you're giving up your holidays, your family events. And it can be tough, the things that you have to see, the things that you have to deal with, the things that you have to hear. But even more than that, what people don't understand, because he's been doing this, you know, I don't know what the correct term is, if it's gracious or not, but for the last year and a half, he's been picking up the slack. He and Ian both have been picking up the slack. We have not had our third officer. And so people don't understand, he has been working long stretches without a day off. And when he does have a day off, he's on call. He's not getting much of a break, and he's there for us. When many others would have thrown in the towel due to burnout, he kept coming back because we needed him. Another trait mentioned in yesterday's meeting was compassion. Due to time limits, I'm not going to share all of the stories I've heard throughout my time on city council that illustrate his humanity, but I want to thank him for the positive impressions he has made on people who needed that compassionate touch during some really bad moments. One trait we didn't talk about yesterday that I think is incredibly important in a police chief is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. And in law enforcement, things are always changing, and it seems like it's snowballing. So by adapt, I mean to find a way to continue to meet department objectives in an evolving political climate that has driven legislative changes and case law decisions that have effectively hobbled law enforcement's ability to use old tools to solve problems. As a result, our chief has had to implement out-of-the-box thinking and artfully manage his relationships with law-abiding and non-law-abiding individuals to identify and resolve issues in our community, often before people are even aware the problem exists. And that's truly a test of a good officer, is if you don't even know that you have a problem and he's handled it already. You can't do that without having a strong community connection, and that's another desirable trait that citizens said they would like to see in our next police chief. And with the limited resources we've afforded him, the chief has managed to stave off many of the problems our surrounding communities have been wrestling with for years. I know we're seeing some of those now, but there's many other reasons that I won't go into here why we might be seeing those now and completely out of his control. If you appreciate that we haven't been inundated with lawsuits, you need to thank Chief Bowman. If you appreciate our low crime rate, you need to thank him for his role in managing that. And I don't know if it's realistic to hope that our next chief will be as loyal to Gerhard for as many years as Chief Bowman has been. That is a lot to ask, but I want to thank Chief Bowman.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Councilor. And he was here just a few minutes ago, but got called out on a call.
So maybe watch that, because I do like it.
So we'll make sure that we figure out.
And I hope he'll let us, I know he doesn't really want to have us going over, I think he should.
Yeah, if it's council directed, I'd be happy to.
Council director.
Well, that way I don't get in trouble. Yeah, I haven't been tased yet, but he's only got a month left and I'm not.
Did you say tased?
Yes, sir.
I've been tased, it's not a big deal. I'll take the hit.
So
I'll drag him in.
figure something out.
Okay.
And I'd like to invite family, if it's possible, if they'd be interested in coming, because we need to thank them for giving him up for us as we needed him.
Okay, well. There you have it.
I think you have Austin. We get Austin?
I wasn't gonna call on Austin because I think his throat may be sore, but you can go ahead and make a report if you want.
I have nothing to report. I just want to apologize for not being there today and yesterday. I had a work function scheduled for yesterday. And as a result of that, I'm sick and didn't want to get you guys all sick today. So sorry to not be there.
All right, it's good that you're home and not here.
Yeah.
All right, on to officer reports, and you've got the chief of police report in your packet. So we'll go on to the fire chief and his end of year report.
Yes, thank you very much. Mayor, again, I apologize for being tardy. I was in the middle of wrapping up my officers meeting. I'll start with my report, my typical report for last month, and then I'll get into the end of year report, if that works for everyone. Last month, kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. We had 27 calls for the month, a lot better than the 40 to 55 plus that we have monthly. So it was super nice to have that. That broke down 15 for the city, 6 for the district. We had 6 calls that was auto or mutual aid. 4 of them was to Seaside, 3 of those was for fires. Building, 1 was an RV fire, and I think another one in car fire building. Then 1 didn't happen, 1 asked for car fires. We asked for aid 3 times, which happened to all be due to the same call. We had an RV burn down just Friday on Trestle Drive. While that call was going on, so we had Seaside, Kennedy, Chamberlain, and Warrenton here. While that call was going on, we had 2 other calls at the exact same time. At the same time as that call, not all calling at the same time. So while we were on that fire, there was a car crash on 101 Pacific Way. The Warrenton Fire Chief took care of that as he was here and coverage for us. As I explained to you guys before, is the county operates as 1 fire district operationally. And so whenever we go to a call, we have always, it's like a ripple effect back into people coming in the back. And then after he cleared from that, about 30 minutes later, there was a smoke detector activation for Pines that's been working again. So that was a breakdown from last month. Nothing else too crazy about that. We were able to get myself and a few of my officers out of town last weekend. We took some training. One of our guys had some vehicle extrication training from a group of guys in Dallas that compete on vehicle extrication. So people that go and cut up cars and compete, they got some top-end training. And then we also got some lecture training of command and control and stuff from there. So it was really, really well. Good training from that. That is my month report. And then I'll dive into the end of year report. I'm sure that you've all been dying to hear from. I won't go through everything on it as there's a lot of text and stuff. I'll leave some of that to you guys. And after tonight, this will be available on our website. And I think it's on the city's website with the council meeting stuff as well. Page 1, the about stuff is stuff that's already on our fire department's website. Page 2, the mission and stuff and our organizational function. That's on our website as well. Organizational function is how you guys know is how we operate. There's council over us. There's a district board from there. The next page is a letter from myself to everybody. And then it's our org chart, who's all in the fire department currently. And then the next page of the first graph is the one I'm gonna kind of real start talking about from there. Last year, we had a total of 757 calls, which is up 97 from the year before. And even though it doesn't say it here, that was up 157 from the year before that. So a 15% increase from last year. But over the last 6 years, we've had a 75% increase in calls. And that's better reflected in the bottom graph. That first dot there says we had 200 calls in the year 2000. And then last year, in 2022, we had 750 calls for the year. So just shows the increase that we've had in everything we do. The next one is a breakdown of calls in 2022. A lot of people like to say we're a medical department that does fire, because they like to think that 99% of what we do is medical. And as this graph shows, it is not. This fluctuates year to year, but we camp out between 48 and 52% medical. Last year for 2022, it was the same, 49% was medical. And then the next big percentage, 27% was fire. And then 8% each for hazard related and motor vehicle accidents. Hazard related is like taking care of trees and storms, assisting for other situations. And then good intent calls is like people calling smoke detectors going off. We changed those. People have smoke complaints in the area. And we had, I think, 3 or 4 technical rescues last year, water rescues from that. The next one is the breakdown of our mutual aid. We sent aid out 128 times last year, and we received aid, we asked for aid 35 times. I know that it looks like a lot that we went to Seaside 89 times in there. But there is some things in there that Seaside does for us that compensates for that. They not only come to us when we need it, they provide many, many hours of free training to us that helps offset that cost in huge ways. They've also paid a large amount of fees to dispatch to get dispatching stuff set up that we didn't have to pay. Come to our aid. They always are giving us equipment that we need. They no longer did minor things that they kind of run their extent for them. They assist us administratively as well. So even though it looks like there's a lot, we went to Seaside 89 times and they may have only came here a dozen times or so. it gets paid back in other ways, just in instant times. And then we also get asked the question, what's the percentage of breakdown, the calls that we have? So out of the 757 calls last year, 45% was in the district and 55% was in the city limits. So the majority again is also in our city limits from there. The next page is a quick letter from the training officer about training and stuff that was done last year. Last year, there was 26 new certifications that our firefighters got. Those are listed there. It's incredible what the volunteers here do. It just blows my mind. The next page in that shows volunteer hours. For 2021, we had about 4,300 volunteer hours for incidents, only for fire calls. Last year, we had about 5,200 volunteer hours for incidents, and there people just giving up their time, their families, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, holidays, what have you. The next one down is how many hours they spent on training. So in 2021, we had about 2,700 hours in training. In 2022, there's about the same 2,700 hours in training. That's the same because we have about the same amount of volunteers. So it takes about the same amount of hours to train, to maintain, to get certifications for about the same amount of volunteers. The second to last page talks about ISO ratings and where we are, what we strive for in the department. We are here in ISO class 3, which is very good. With that, it helps with insurance ratings. It helps with keeping premiums down. Insurance companies don't know everything it takes for those. They just know what number you are. Are you 1 to a 10? And that's all they know about. They don't know what makes up with those. I've listed 2 graphs down below to kind of give you some perspective. The majority of Oregon is a class 4, and there are only 88 departments in Oregon that are class 3 like us. Nationwide, the majority of fire departments are class 5. That's 9,000 fire departments nationwide. And nationwide, there's only 3,600 fire departments in class 3. So, and that's due to all the training that our guys take, equipment we have, everything they put into it, the hours and hours that they do. 7 years ago, we had to prove our ISO ratings. They came and judged us. We had a certain amount of time that we had to drive up, drop a porta tank, hook up, draft out of the porta tank, and show water all in about, I think it was 2.5 minutes or so that we had to do it. And they did it with time to spare. So what the volunteers is crazy, what they do here. They operate as career firefighters because they have to. When you go to a car crash, a fire, they don't know that you're a volunteer. They don't know that you're a crew. So you have to operate just like you are. The last page, just real quick, gives a breakdown of our apparatus, what each function is, where it's housed. All the apparatus, except for one, is owned by the city of Gerhart. Only one is the district owned, and that's the tender, which is due to be replaced from there. And if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Yes.
I know that when we had the big windstorm, and I came down there and you guys were talking about the tree had come down on a car.
On Highway 26.
Right. So I've since talked to Chad a little bit, and I know that we have Pastor Daniel. But I'm happy to see that we've reached out to some other people in the community that we can use if they ever see something truly horrible. I want to make sure that we are giving them the attention that they need, and that we're checking with them to make sure that it's addressed and we're not just sending them home.
100% completely. And Pastor Daniel is our department chaplain. He's going through chaplaincy training. They've been trained on that for first responder use. And that's in 2 roles. When we call him to a scene, he's there for the family and he's there for us. He's there first for the family, and then it allows him to get situational awareness on scene for what goes on. So then when we come back here, he then helps us.
Okay.
So he's for community and then us as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we do have CISD policies too, for critical incident stress debriefing, where another organization can come in. There's also some people locally that are trained for that. And Chief Josh and Chief Hutch are always on top of keeping an eye on us volunteers.
Okay. And I know that nothing is scheduled right now, so it can only be a guess, but when do you think we'll be up for our ISO rating again?
3 years.
Okay.
I have a question. I know that your water rescue craft, the drivers need to be certified, is that correct? And I don't see that they were trained on it in this report. Were they trained on it this year?
Yes, but they have not been certified yet.
So how long will it take for their certification to become a?
So, there's continued things they have to do every year. They have to pass a swim test every year. And then they have to complete their task book. So they've got every fire certification, there's 3 parts to it. There's a classroom training that you sit and learn. There's a practical application that you go out and you do it, you figure out how to do it. And then the task book, kind of like the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, you have your little merit badges, parents had to sign on. We have the same thing in the fire service. There's a book that says you have to do this task this many times efficiently before you can sign off. They're working the last couple of signatures in their task book to get certified. So, which is why still Seaside comes and we operate underneath them for water rescues.
Thank you.
Yes.
Preston, any questions?
Nope.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy your meeting.
We will.
All right. Master of money.
The city of Gerhardt's Bank, Columbia Bank, has officially merged with Umpqua Bank. It's now official. Umpqua is the parent company. We are not anticipating any disruption in service. So if you have a water account electronically or anything like that, there should be no issues. They're going to continue to use our current routing number and account number. And at this point, there has been no plan to change it. So nobody should have any interrupted service if they're paying us that way. We continue to work through the financial requirements related to e-permitting. Angelina and I have taken many classes, her much more than me, but mine mainly have just been focused on the financial side. After the city is officially live on the system, contractors will be able to pay from the convenience of their own home at any time. So 24 hours a day, they can log in and fill out their permits whenever it's convenient for them. We also continue to evaluate and revise our building code accounts. In the chart of accounts, building permits have now been changed to structural permits. So both in the revenues account 100019 has been changed to structural instead of building. And in the expenditures account 101157 has been changed from building to structural. And we may have to add a few more codes as they come so that we can just more accurately account for some of the things coming in, because there's going to be, you know, a very robust amount of things that can be charged now for where they were not before. So we may need to break those down further. We had a meeting with Chad and we don't want to overcomplicate it. So we're going to try to be mindful of just not adding accounts that just create confusion. In revenues, there's been some restitution payments, although not very much. It's not a high line item in 100025 court miscellaneous, which were some cases that had happened that had gone to court at the county or the state level. So the state had imposed fees on these people for damages or other things on behalf of the city of Gerhardt. So the state's been collecting those and sending us those checks. We received our state apportionment in Fund 45, the state revenue sharing, and the Fund 60, the state street. So we've got some larger payments into those. In expenditures in Fund 20, our annual debt service payment for the water treatment bonds were made. So we made the large payments this time, the second time around. There are 2 more years of payments on the 2015 series, and there are 8 more payments on the 2020 refinancing series. So we're definitely seeing the end of debt service payments, which is really exciting. There were also expenditures in 6065 for contracted services. And these were to pay for tree debris removal after storms in December. I know Chad and Josh had been working with the county and we're hoping to maybe get some reimbursement for some of that damage. It took down lots of trees and limbs, and so we're hoping to maybe recoup some of those costs. The city is very appreciative of the service that our volunteer mayor, councilors, budget committee members, and the planning commissioners provide. We want to remind our official volunteers that if they attend a training, the city may be able to reimburse for related travel expenses. It is a benefit to our community and programs when our volunteer decision makers have informed, knowledgeable data. So if you go to those trainings and you have mileage or meal reimbursements or hotel reimbursements, please let us know so that we can, make accommodations for those. You're already not paid, shouldn't be expected to pay for those expenses too. So we value your contributions. I was working on shopping trips, so I take trips. That's it.
That's it. Thank you, Justin. All right. City attorney.
So at the risk of jinxing us, we have had a pretty calm month legally. I'm aware of some of the community issues that have been coming up, and Chad and I have been working through those in a way that meets both the letter and the spirit of those laws. And like all the decisions we make, we're grounding our recommendations, which should be coming in front of you soon, in kind of health, through that lens of health and making sure that we're a safe community for everyone. So I think we've been looking at some different ordinances. I don't think we're going to need to bring any to you for interpretation, but we might. If we do, that's going to be next meeting. And then as the legislature passes laws and as federal courts rule on things, we're making sure to keep abreast of all of those decisions and legal changes. Also keeping an eye on what other jurisdictions are doing and kind of the legal response to that, so that we can make sure that we have a thorough understanding of kind of the changing landscape of the law around some of these issues. And if you have any specific questions, I can certainly answer them.
Any questions for Peter? No.
No.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
Oh, Peter, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Under Oregon law, is a person homeless if they're in a motor home, being that it's a mobile home? So they wouldn't be quote unquote homeless, so they would come under a different heading, wouldn't they, under state law?
Well, that's kind of a gray area. We'd have to look at some of the factors such as, if someone is there are people we know from some election law cases from the late 80s that their domicile was RV and that they spent significant time in Clatsop County. And so we do know that there are people who are domiciled in a mobile home. And I don't think that anyone would believe that those people are houseless, since, a court ruled that their RV was their domicile. So I think that there are certainly arguments and case law we've seen that would say that no, your domicile can be in a mobile home.
Okay, and along those same lines, is it possible to include that a travel home, i.e. a trailer, since you tow that behind you as your home in order to have conveyance from where you park it and be able to drive around and get supplies? Could that be lumped, if you will, lumped into the same category?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the case I'm aware of that involved voting, there was no distinction made whether the mobile home was self-propelled or pulled. It was, based on the facts of that case, that was the people's domicile. And they were credibly able to argue that their intent was that their domicile, their mobile home, would remain in Clatsop County for, I believe, at a RV park. That was their intent. And in that case was pre some changes to our election laws. But in that case, the judge found that mobile home was their domicile.
Okay, and the last question I have, which just came to me and it may not be, I know it's not worded correctly, but with a mobile home or a trailer, mobile home, an RV or a trailer, there is no way that we could possibly, or people can't possibly have a week's worth of sewage for their own health and safety in their mobile home, their RV. Is that reasonable?
I mean, I have actually never owned or traveled in a recreational vehicle, so I am aware. I'm aware that whether you call it effluent, whatever you want to call it, is stored in those and then disposed of. But I think that knowledge is from the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation as much as anything else. So I am not the right person to ask RV related questions.
All right, no, I was just going, thinking about the health and safety of people living in RVs and travel homes.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was in the paper or whether I heard about it from someone, but I believe that there was an instance of in-ground contamination due to waste from RVs not being properly disposed of in Seaside. I believe it was Seaside. So I know that can happen.
It can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on, we'll go to city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And just to add on to that, RV situation, staff is going down there daily. Today, we did some inspections to make sure health and safety things in regards to the environment were in check, and we haven't found any evidence of anything going on in that direction or anybody dumping near their sites. So we are keeping an eye on it. Code enforcement, we did resolve one of these cases, and we still got 3 more going on, and they are slowly moving forward. Public Works, you may have seen them on the highway. They did a really complicated water installation on old pipes, and it was something that was not easy at all, but they accomplished it, and I'm very proud of that crew for doing so. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to Stephen Peterson. He went and took a test for some water certifications for water treatment and distribution, and he passed that water certification. So that is not an easy test, and we're quite proud of him. Staff and administration, I'd like to also say a big thank you to our building department, especially Angelina, who has been working through this e-permitting situation, which is incredibly entailed. Many hours, I would say we're well over 100, it feels like, with her working on this situation. And she makes strides every day and keeps pushing things forward. And so that crew there has been amazing to work with. So thank you. Vacation rentals, looks like we had over 114,000 in transient room tax in Q4. And as you see in the revenue and expenditure list, we have exceeded our budgeted numbers for that. So it continues to surprise us a little bit. Special projects, the playground was finally completed, the playground itself, and is working really well. There's a few adjustments we're going to make, but Still, the park is open. We're doing daily inspections on that, except for Sundays, to make sure that there's no garbage or any other material that might be in that park that would be unsafe for children. And then also developing a regular maintenance schedule to make sure that that is being held together correctly and that everything is tight the way it should be. But the smiles on the faces of these kids, it's being very well received, and they're having a good time. The next portion of that is we do have a plan and a bid and have ordered material. We haven't, but the purveyor that we're using has to put a bench top on top of the cement wall. That small stem wall was designed so that if that area did flood, that the chips would not come out and flood the entire area. That area has flooded before. We were prepared for that, and we made sure that some things were taken into account when we put this together. But now we have that wall and that top, and to finish it off, we came up with a plan to put a bench around the entire area. So parents or aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, whoever can sit around that park wherever they like and either look into the park or look out and enjoy what's going on, whether or not with their dogs or that sort of thing. It won't have a back to rest on, but I think it's going to be a really useful part of that park, and will also help with some more safety as well. Then we are getting ready to asphalt the south side of that. We're waiting for the batch plant to kind of get going and rolling, and here at the asphalt plant. And that will be one ADA parking space. And per the planning commission and the conditional use permit that we have is that one parking space will just be for ADA. We're going to encourage people to park on the Pacific Way area and encourage people not to park and fill up the Trails and Arts Association parking lot. So we're working with them on trying to figure out ways to do that through signage. And we've got a couple of other little things planned for him that we'll talk about in the future. The ODOT sidewalk budget, our grant that we applied for doing the sidewalk down Pacific Way to take care of some of the problems that we have up there. We had to cut down our expectations of how much work we needed to do because of the cost increases that we didn't anticipate. And actually the cost of the project was a little higher than we even anticipated without those cost increases. So we have started, and we're just completing an agreement with the state. They're going to allow us to continue. We're just modifying how much we're able to do. And we're going to do as much as we possibly can as that project kind of goes forward. We will be starting that one way or the other here in the spring.
Do you have to submit a reduced scope to them, or?
And we did, and I believe it's been, we're just waiting for their approval, but they helped us write it.
Okay.
Bee pollinator, going to start with some of the projects on the ridge path with planting more bee pollinator. But I was working with Noah today, and him and I have been discussing this over some time. This is a project that you, Mayor Smith, have been interested in. There are some grant monies available for looking at the culverts that are on the forest routes that we have through Deerheart. We're looking at the Neocoxie Creek, the health of that creek, and looking at some potential grants to be able to potentially increase the flow of that creek through those culverts by installing new ones. So there is grant money out there. We're going to start talking about that, and I'll report more as we get closer. Work sessions, we got the 5th Tuesday coming up in May. We're working on that agenda. We'll be working with that with the mayor, the council. Council goals work session, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and town hall. That's all I have for now, Mr. Mayor and council.
Thank you.
Quick question, back to the park,
Yes.
the book nook, remember where are we with that?
So the book nook, we were looking at into the park, and with everything that goes into a park, any changes to a park needs to be a conditional use. But what we found is probably the best place for that book nook is actually at the south end of that park, outside of the park, on the right of way, near the parking and at the entrance to the park itself. And that doesn't require an installation in that location, a conditional use permit. And with the council, being very positive over that project and that this being outside of the official park zone, we felt that doing the installation there at the corner. So we'll be working with those kids soon to get that book note installed.
Okay.
Kim, I actually talked to Leah just last week and she will be dropping off the post for us to install.
Okay.
Once that's installed, then they'll come out and they'll attach the book itself.
Great.
The bench is going around the concrete town wall, is it? It's gonna be out of wood.
It's gonna be out of tracks.
Full wood tracks?
Plastic.
Yeah, the stuff that.
Well, as long as it's a little softer than the concrete, in case somebody bumps their head.
That was the intention, and working with our building official, that's something that he wanted us to accomplish as well, so this bench will help protect.
Soften the tracks.
Are you in a position to commit to any kind of a timeline on that portion of it?
Material has been ordered, and I don't think it's going to be very long. Rex Olson is just looking for a time where he can schedule it, but it's high on his priority list, so I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be soon.
Well, the firemen are still planning to do something for spring, like an Easter egg. Is there anything we could do to make sure that maybe we could be ready with that, and maybe we could have a sign like Tom has suggested in the past, and maybe get some of that stuff done so that when we're ready to get out there in that park, everybody can enjoy that?
I think so. I think that with what Rex was telling me last week, that we should be able to make that timeline. But I'll double check and then we'll put Easter as the deadline, and that might help.
Well, now you did it to yourself, because now I'm gonna be in it.
Okay,
I think you should make it before Easter.
not Easter Day.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to visitors, and we have none. So we'll go on.
I'm sorry.
Are you talking
No, there are visitors.
the communication? Okay. Thank you. The sign up sheet.
Yes. I apologize.
That's quite all right. Okay. Public comment. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. First person is Bibi Michelle.
Hello, everybody. This is Bibi Michelle from 661 10th Street. I just want to give you a little friendly neighborhood update about Duncan's Crossing in my neighborhood. As you know, Duncan's Crossing completed the Ridge Path Trail between 8th and 10th Street. And personally, we use it regularly. It's a great option on the windy days for a little shelter. And of course, the doggies love the trail. And living on 10th Street, we have the opportunity to see a lot of folks using it. Some people head north on the trail extension between 10th and Gerhart Loop. The signs do seem to help because intuitively it's kind of a funky little route to get from 10th to the next leg of the trail. Some people end up just taking advantage of going on 10th to Cottage, but I just want to let everyone know how fortunate I think we are that we have this great trail in really the heart of our community. And thank you so much to the city for persisting through the many challenges that you faced to make John Duncan's vision for this trail extension go through. It really is a wonderful addition for our community. And I just want to thank everyone involved for making it happen. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bibi. Jane Gable.
Jane Gable, 714 H Street. I really wanted to thank the mayor and council for having a well-attended town hall meeting yesterday. Hopefully, it will be a start to regaining trust. There were some very constructive comments throughout the meeting that we can draw on. Our current chief, Jeff Bowman, has publicly stated that Gerhardt is virtually crime-free. In fact, so crime-free that we don't have police coverage on weekends. Many in the community don't feel we even need a police chief. You are spending thousands of taxpayer dollars on a company to vet candidates for the position. The last time this process was done, approximately 11 or 12 years ago, your predecessors, mayor and council, also spent thousands of taxpayer dollars and chose to totally ignore the vetted candidates and instead hired their own pre-picked candidate who had no education or qualifications for the job as outlined in the job description. Is this going to be a repeat of that fiasco? Like before, have you already picked a new police chief and are only going through the motions of a town hall and public input in an attempt to silence those who do not agree with you? Our mayor, council, and city administrator have refused to listen to anyone over at least the last 3 years who did not agree with you. Example, the failure of your fire bond measure. I certainly hope that the town hall yesterday afternoon that I personally found immensely constructive and valuable wasn't just an attempt to make us think you're actually going to start listening.
Thank you, James. Moving on, we have correspondence. One from Tom Tees. It's very nice. Tom, I've got to tell you, there was no intention, and this council under Paulina, when I was president of the council, we decided we would not use the emergency clause to pass something because that circumvents public input. And we're not doing that. This is just something that I want you to be aware of. We're going to take it off as an addition to what we might do. But we will still have that ability. It's just, I don't want people thinking that because it's there, that's something we're going to consider doing.
And just to be clear, you're saying you're going to take off the option to do an emergency declaration.
We're going to take it off the paper, but it is still a viable action that we have.
Okay.
Because it is in our,
But the ordinance we're still considering.
yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
All right, so there is Meyer Freeman also has a letter to us. I don't know if anyone got that. You should, it's in your packet.
It's in with, along with Tom's letter.
Right, on the backside, there's the Eric Friedman, Judy Spear. Anyone have any questions for these correspondents? The Carlos Phelan and Andrew Stein.
As far as Judy Spears' comments about the speed on Gerhardt Loop, we had the trailer out there at one point, didn't we?
We've had the trail out there many times, yes.
Okay.
And we rotate from town.
Right, that's a good place for it to rest when we don't have any place else for it to go. But another good place is down on F Street by Cottage and the racetrack down there. When's the last time we put it on F Street between Cottage and H?
I think it was last year. We had that out twice.
Might be time to revisit that too,
Those are two
because
of the
I was
hot
walking there
buttons.
recently and yeah, somebody came by with flame coming from his tailpipe, so we could.
Yeah.
do what we do.
Yeah, through the winter storms and things, I can kind of keep it away. Some maintenance, but we have up and going soon. And I thought we would put it here this year, we looked at it first.
Okay, Grease.
What's that?
Okay, Grease.
All right. Any other comments about the written communication? Okay, having none, we'll move on to ordinance and resolutions. And the first one is ordinance 937. Chad, do you want to read the synopsis of this for us?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, this is ordinance 653. Ordinance 653 was passed in 1991. It describes the rules and orders of business followed during city council meetings. In 1995, it was amended via ordinance 697 to change meeting start times from 7:30 to 7. And the state meetings falling on a holiday closure would occur the following Wednesday. A lot has changed since the mid-90s, and with the advancement of technology, the mayor has requested city staff look into amending the current rules and processes in order to keep meetings on track and running at an appropriate length while still handling required city business, informing the public and meeting community needs. Draft ordinance 937 is attached with the amended section of 653 noted as it has been reviewed by the mayor. You see your options there. Staff has no recommendation on this. This is the council decision, and if it's approved by title only, the ordinance would be again read next month and then take effect 30 days later.
Okay. So, go ahead.
So you can see the changes on ordinance 937 that are being made to the regular meetings. And one thing that I think that both the mayor and I would like to point out is this shows that there are citizens' comments being added to the 3-minute citizen comments to age-old business and I new business. As we are perusing some of the other agendas through the other towns, we have found that this actually gives our residents probably the most opportunities through a agenda to speak about the business going on through the city of Gearhart. And I know that was important to the mayor to make sure that that was conveyed.
Yeah.
So we, the mayor worked hard on this, came up with these issues, and we proved them. And the ordinance 937 is as it is at the moment, unless there's any changes being recommended.
Does anyone on the council want to talk changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're going to have a 5-minute under citizen communication, 5 minutes, and then later they have 3 minutes. Is this correct?
That's correct.
So under the 5-minute rule, they can only talk about things on the agenda,
Not on the agenda.
not on the agenda.
Right. It's for bringing up concerns that they have that are not being addressed on the agenda.
So what's the difference between citizens communication and new business?
New business is, this is new business, this ordinance right
Yes.
here. So under the new rules, they would have an ability before we voted or discussed it, to say what they wanted to say on it.
I got it, okay.
Okay, and an old business.
Right.
Like our EOP. Again, they would have 3 minutes to say, well, I've decided I don't like this or whatever. But at this time, they don't have that
I
ability.
understand. I'm just a little concerned that they're not allowed to ask questions.
Well, that's something that,
CIS.
it's LOC and the Oregon Mayors Association said that this is a city council meeting, is city business, and is not a time for engaging the citizens in questions and answers. What we could do in lieu of that is set up a time that we had questions and answers outside of the city council meeting, because city council is the city business that we're trying to take care of. And people with questions are not necessarily something that pertain to city business. They're about people's concerns or they're seeking information.
Well, like when Mrs. Gable was speaking, she had questions. I mean, we didn't answer them, but she did have questions. I'm just saying, we might not know the answers. And that's okay, we can say we don't know the answers. But I just think they should be able to ask questions. That's just my view on it.
Well, I agree with you. And I believe that if the question is written down and turned in at City Hall, we will answer the question. That's the most appropriate way, because that way it's not taking away from the council's city business.
I understand.
And that's what I'm concerned that we will get bogged down if we have, let's say 15 people and each one has a question. And then their time period will be used up and we'll be trying to figure out the answer when actually what we need is to move on and get this business taken care of. So we're done in our 2-hour period.
But, now I'm sorry, I'm being argumentative,
That's all
but
right.
if they
You
ask
said
a
that.
question and we, rather than try to figure out the answer, we can just say, we don't know at this time, we'll address it in the future. And then the 5 minutes just doesn't care.
Right, but if they wrote it down, or if they asked a question during their 5 minutes,
Yeah,
all we'd have to do is have our recorder have the question written down, and then we can go back to it and answer it.
thank you.
Presley.
Okay, so we had this discussion, I think it was this week. Whereas I think that the overall feeling in the town is that we don't communicate very well with the citizens. So my suggestion was that, you know, we've got this agenda and it goes up Friday prior to the city council meeting.
Right.
So my suggestion was maybe what we could do is for people to read the agenda, they've got questions, could possibly submit their questions to the city prior to the night of the meeting.
Okay.
Like 3 days in advance or whatever it is, right? And then that way there, we could review the questions prior to the meeting. And then when they present the questions, then we would have some sort of an idea, instead of just being blindsided. We would have some sort of an idea of what is going to be asked. And we could probably come up with some sort of an answer, or we could delay it until the next month.
Sure.
But if they had more time, you know, instead of coming in here at 6:45, you know, whatever it is, and writing a question down out there.
Didn't know what, just a little and cream cheese.
Okay. So I could agree to something like that if it was done prior to the meeting and we had a chance to look into it and answer it.
Yeah.
And then they could do that during their 5-minute period.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so like yesterday afternoon, you know, people filled out the cards or whatever it is, but it was on the spot. And we seemed to be able to deal with those in a timely manner. I mean, everything was discussed. I thought it was a great meeting yesterday.
Right, and I do too. But there were a couple of questions, but most of it were the comments of what they wanted in the police chief. And that's a big difference between someone making a comment on what they feel a police chief attribute should be, and a question that, I'd like to know the positive cash flow of the second line item on the third page, you know, under Public Works, which might take investigating. So I agree with you. If they could do it, let's say by Friday or by Monday of the week of the city council.
Correct.
Yeah, and then we'd have time to. Yeah. I'd be willing to, if you want to do something like that, I'm sure we could pencil something like that in there. Or do you want to bring this back?
I'm not sure that we would need to bring it back. It would be kind of by administrative duties. Generally, people, when they have something, for example, Tom, when he submitted his letter, he did that days in advance. Well, excuse me, just recently. That's not a good example. But
3 days.
Well,
and we had some
a lot better
opportunity.
than the day of the meeting.
Yes, and that's what this is trying to avoid as well, is there are some people who like to come in and do a shock and awe campaign. Go ahead and make the council and the staff not look so good by asking questions that maybe we should know the answer, but we haven't prepared for. So if people submit their information in advance, then we can talk about adding it to the agenda. The other way that this goes, if somebody submits something during a visitor section, the council can always say, you know what, that's very interesting. Why don't we talk about that next month? any of you have that opportunity to do that. And as long as you come through a consensus, you can instruct us to go ahead and take on a certain subject. And that way it's just more organized and we get more business done. But there are plenty of opportunities for people to do that. They can get it into early. If they get it in at the same day and we want to consider it, we can move it forward. So we have options to be able to make sure they're heard and on an individual basis. And I think that procedure will take care of most of the problems if we're in tune to it. If you see a letter of correspondence in here that bothers you or needs to be addressed, we can talk about it. You can say, hey, we want to learn more about that. Please instruct the staff. We'll get you some more information. We'll come in prepared and we'll have a good conversation about it rather than trying to catch up and make things happen on the fly, which just isn't good for this organization.
Well, the tree thing was one thing that came up last month, that just totally blindsided everybody.
Yes, it did. Sharon Coughlin.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, that was more administrative and Sharon and I working together and the expectations of what was happening. So that was just a lot of communication there. But in that sort of thing, if we're using that as an example, if Sharon would come, we would talk about the procedure, we would bring it up to the mayor and the council, see if it's something that they'd like to add into the agenda, and then we can handle it. But there was a lot of work that needed to be done with that policy before we went through it, with both infrastructure, parks master planning, what does the community want? So we need to be a little bit more open with those types of procedures. But yeah, that one just kind of hit us sideways, and I apologize to Sharon for that as well. But I think there are opportunities. I think if we just organize them, key in on them, then we can move forward with some of them as well.
So we can add something at the very end of this paragraph under citizen communication, that any questions that people wish answered at council need to be submitted by Monday at 4 o'clock.
Can I be the devil's advocate on that?
You can try.
I'll do my best. Well, I believe that citizens can ask us questions. I know I receive emails, I know you receive emails, and I gotta believe that we're responding to emails. I know I am, and if they ask me a question, I answer the question. Now, does that mean that they get to put on a public performance with that question and do it for shock and awe? No, which they may not necessarily like, but they get an answer from me. So it's not saying that they'll never get an answer. To me, our agenda is set so that we stay on track and we don't go off into the weeds with, wow, yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, that's a good point. And there will be a lot of citizens will always, I've worked with security on a lot of city council meetings, and I've seen people come in with some really good last minute questions that you think, wow, yeah, we do need to look into that. And that's something I didn't think about, and we do need to look into that. But if you go down that road with every single one, well, let me back up. You either have to answer every question or you're not being fair and equitable to everybody who has a question. So then you have to plow through and say, now that's a good question, I'm gonna answer that one or I'm not. And that can get us into some problems. And I'm not telling you, I just want you to consider this, that let's say somebody comes in and asks the same question. Okay, let me give you an example. We used to have a gentleman that came into Rancho Cucamonga dressed in a clown suit at every single council meeting. And he would go through the newspaper and he would read an article in the paper, and then he would ask a question. Now, if we had stopped and answered every single question or tried to answer every question, he would have held every city council meeting up till midnight. And that can happen. They can come in here with questions that do essentially a filibuster and keep us all tied up here all night long. So I just want you to consider that. I'm not trying to tell you that we shouldn't, just please consider that. I think the point of this, when you look at this, Tom had a very good point, had several very good points, and he made me very nervous. I looked at this very closely, and then I talked to Chad, and he cleared up some of the things for me. Number one is that it's clear to me now, having read this, that you're giving folks more opportunities to speak to us rather than less by doing this.
Oh yeah, 6 minutes more.
Right. And what I also like about this, after doing the research and asking the questions that Tom prompted me to ask based on his email, this is equitable, or this is on par with what other agencies around us are doing, other cities around us are doing this. In fact, you reached out to other cities to find out specifically what they were doing and took the best practices, is that correct?
Not necessarily. The mayor actually worked the hardest on this and putting it together with staff. And most cities do not have as much communication as what's in here. The cities that I checked with Cannon Beach, Seaside, Warrenton, and Astoria, they have the visitor section, and then that is it. The addition of the old business 3 minutes and the new business 3 minutes is your heart's own. I have not seen that in this county.
And the other citizen comment period of 5 minutes is usually limited to 3
Correct.
in all
Versus a
other
little bit longer.
jurisdictions.
Right. So here's my thought, is that people have a First Amendment right to say whatever they want. We can only say we won't answer their questions right now, but if they want to ask a question, you can't tell them that they can't ask a question. They can ask a question during their time. They can use their time to ask us 30 questions. But where we could get into trouble and end up in the weeds and end up with city council meetings that run amok is when we try to answer all of those questions and or say, I'm going to answer your questions, but you're a difficult person, so I'm not going to answer your questions. And it appears that we're showing favoritism. Whatever we do, we have to do for everybody. That is the reason why when you and I and Preston went to that training that LOC put on, they recommended strongly that you answer questions in a different venue, not interrupt a meeting to answer questions, because it becomes very difficult and you create some liability for yourself. So I'm just going to throw that out there based on the training that we received from LOC and CIS.
Okay.
For consideration.
So how would you amend this ordinance, or would you?
I actually, having done the research and finding out that this raises the standard and allows people more time to speak without running the risk of running into those filibusters or running over time. I actually like this, but I also do agree with Tom, and now that that's off the table, I did not see a need to do an emergency order on this or emergency declaration on this, because I do believe very strongly that people should have a right to tell us how they feel about it and give us an opportunity to learn something that maybe we're not considering. But there is nobody here objecting to it, so that's also something I don't like the idea of trying to answer questions in the middle of this meeting. I think that we find a different avenue for answering those questions.
Okay, so if we took out something like it's nor, and then just put, it is a time for members of the public to ask questions, but not receive answers from the council.
I would agree with that.
You would agree to that?
Right.
Well, I wouldn't put not receive, I could just cross out not receive.
Or questions asked may be responded to or should be responded to at a later time, because that it actually is in our rules that we have to respond to questions.
Yeah.
So we should say that, you know, when a question is asked that requires an answer,
yes,
the answer shall be given or will take appropriate action to ensure that the question is answered in a way that does not interfere with the meeting.
We just won't answer.
You can put the question will be answered in a timely manner at a future date, or in a timely manner, period.
Right. And this is a first draft. Let's see how it goes. If we find out that that we need something that is a little bit more concrete, and if we're not doing our jobs correctly and people are complaining again that they're not getting answers to their questions, then maybe we implement a timeline. It'll be answered within 2 weeks or whatever. But I think, because we can always massage this later, but I think that we don't stop meetings and have them go on forever while we're trying to answer questions and then tell other people, well, we've run out of time, so we're not going to answer your question, but we answered his question.
I understand, and I think it will help in the community to show that we can be, or we are going to be more open, and it can't hurt.
Right, and I do like the fact that you have taken it upon yourself to increase the amount of time that the public can speak to us, because we have a very engaged public that want to speak to us.
Okay,
So then basically, if they ask a question and we tell them, come back and get back to them with an answer at a later date, then it gets into old business in the next meeting.
Unless we answer it.
Unless we answer via email, because typically, for an example is tonight, with the questioner or with the complaint about Gerhart Loop. And we just talked about a possible solution to that, although, you know, and we could put that on old business for this time and say, how is that working? What else could we do with that?
And another opportunity to do that is during council concerns as well.
And,
Council concerns at the very end. There
right,
might be something that just doesn't sit right with you. And or you want more information about, or you are concerned about, due to what somebody had said. At that time, you can also direct staff through the council to learn more about it or bring more information.
another example would be Jane just asked a question that I feel like I can provide some information. And I don't know if it's gonna be a complete answer to her question, but I do have some response to that I intend to give during my council concerns today, if that's appropriate, under RA, correct?
Yeah.
So there's nothing that prevents me from doing it, just we don't have to stop the meeting and go, you know, make a right turn and run down this other road when we have other things we have to get to.
Okay.
You can also bring it up in your counselor or mayor's report too, ahead of the meeting.
Right.
And there are times when you need to get more information before you can even give them an answer, and sometimes it's better to have a face-to-face meeting than to, so I mean, I frequently ask people, let's talk about that, let's go have a cup of coffee with you, explain it to me, help me understand what you're saying. I almost did that with Tom when I was reading through his concerns, because I was like, okay, let me see if I can figure out where he's going with this and what his concerns are, and I feel comfortable that I've answered your concerns. But if I missed everything.
Yeah, if I speak for just a second, I think that asking questions is awesome, but what's gonna happen, you're talking about people keep asking questions, and they'll still be able to do that though. Somebody will be able to get up and say, well, I have a question about this, and 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 this and this, so they can talk for a full 5 minutes. You know, is there a way? I mean, I believe in asking questions, I'm the public and everything, but I've seen what's happened in city council, I've been here a lot. And to limit your questions, you know, you can make a statement of 5 minutes or whatever, but limit your questions to a certain amount. And thank you for bringing back the 3 minutes at the end.
You're welcome. Well, okay. Then we'll table this until next month.
Do we have any changes?
Well, it's just the one about, it's a time for people to ask questions but not receive answers from the council. And Preston Scott, he wants the questions by Monday, so we can answer them if they come up. So if we rewrite this a little bit, we'll just bring it back on next month with that included, because that's a good idea. If they have it in, you know, on Monday, then if they do ask it during council, then it can just be dropped on the answer, and then we're done with it. So we'll table that. Thank you, everyone. Now, I gotta learn how to spell. Okay. Conditional use on the old business chat.
Thank you. I'm going to summarize this for you. Essentially, what we've been working on is pickleball players, including Wally Hamer, have been wanting to increase the number of courts at the tennis courts that are located at the water treatment facility. We've debated about it a couple of times, gone back and forth about the ideas of the way they should be constructed, and have an opportunity for a grant to do the work. I polled the council. We talked about this a little bit on an individual basis, and I think the council wants to hear more from the public as well. That was the general consensus that I had, that we wanted more information about what the public thought about this. So when we were looking in the code book and seeing that things that are in park areas, any changes that you make to the park that we mentioned before are a conditional use. We should probably take this pickleball idea and the change to the courts through the conditional use process to provide people with a public hearing. And then that way, people can come to us with their concerns. They can submit letters and they can submit other types of correspondence. And then the council, it'll go through the planning commission and give the opportunity for the planning commission to help make that decision as well, which is more public. What I'm asking for is if the council is interested in us moving forward with that, rather than doing the changes and applying for the grant and doing the changes now, city staff can take this through the conditional use process, get some more public feedback, and then that way the decision would be made with that feedback. So what we would be asking for is your permission. Staff would be the applicant, and we would bring this to the planning commission to discuss the new pickleball courts and give people that opportunity to speak.
We've applied for a grant to resurface, correct?
No, we did not. We have the ability to apply for the grant, and I do need to clarify that we won't be able to make the timeline for this year's grant. But this is a reoccurring grant that if the city does make this decision over time, we can reapply for this grant next year as well, as long as it keeps coming back. But this is a reoccurring grant that is made available to us, and we still intend to use that if changes are being recommended.
I hate to miss the window of opportunity to get that grant. I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, just so we're clear. Is there a possibility, I mean, because the longer that we wait, there are little holes, little divots out there that don't look like much now, but as water continues to go underneath there, it's going to become an even more expensive problem, I would suspect. It's gonna become more of a problem at least. I don't know if it's gonna be more expensive. I hate to wait a year and a half to start on this. Can we say we think this is the idea, apply for the grant, do this process concurrently, and then change the scope of the grant or decline the grant, and then we've lost nothing if we have to reapply next year? At least we don't completely lose the opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, may I say something? I think that could be a possible solution.
Sure.
Our grant application could be to resurface, and we would say the square footage of the area currently used by players of both tennis and pickleball. So the grant application would be to resurface the entire area.
Right.
And we could say it is currently in use as tennis and pickleball, and that, you know, that use evolves as members of the community prioritize play. So rather than saying this is to resurface the tennis court and 2 pickleball courts or whatever it is, it's to resurface the playing area. And then I think getting the conditional use is very prudent, particularly noticing property owners around it, because jurisdictions have been getting a large increase of complaints regarding the noise that's generated by pickleball courts. And the more courts there are, the more noise there is. So I just would want to make sure that the adjacent property owners are aware, because the difference between 2 courts in play with wooden rackets and plastic balls versus 5 or whatever it is, that can make a substantial difference in the amount of noise that's generated. So that's just something I've noticed in other jurisdictions. And so what we would be hoping to do is avoid having that problem later in time.
That sounds like a good solution to me.
Can Krista get it done in that time?
Yeah, I think so.
It's due in May.
It's due in May, and I think that I can work with Christie and probably get it done within that period of time. We would need to next month come with a resolution to the city council that you approve that we are applying for that grant. And then once we have that resolution and we finish the grant, we can submit it for resurfacing, because Peter's idea is pretty good.
I like it.
Gives us some flexibility.
All right, thank you very much, Peter. Shall we put that on the agenda for next month, the resolution? Is everyone in favor?
Yes.
Okay, we've got a unanimous. Way to go, people. Way to knock it out of the park. Under new business, we're gonna go straight to the planning. That way you guys can go if you want afterward. I know it's hard to sit through everything we do, but I would like to have these resolutions read by title only. These are the resolutions for the building department increases. And if we read them by title only, Chad will do that and we can vote on them. And it's just a simple yay or nay to meet state standards. Please.
And just to kind of describe to you what's going on here, during a deep dive into our municipal code, we found that your heart requires for each category a separate resolution. So we broke everything down into those categories, and we have 6 resolutions here for you. Resolutions 978 is a resolution adopting a revised building fee schedule for structural permits. 979 is adopting the revised building fee schedule for manufactured dwelling permits. 980 is adopting the building fee schedule for mechanical permits. 981 is revised building fee schedule for plumbing permits. 982 schedule for building permits in the city miscellaneous fees. And 983 is site review fee schedule for building permits in the city of Deer Park. With these resolutions, this will adopt the fee schedule that the building department has recommended and the state has helped us with.
Peter, can we adopt all 6 as a package, or do we have to adopt each one by number?
I would just read them by title only with the number one at a time, and it'll probably only take a couple minutes.
Okay. Chad?
Mr. Mayor, resolution 978, a resolution adopting revised building fee schedule for structural permits in the city of Deer Park.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passed.
All right, resolution 979, a resolution adopting revised building fee schedule for manufactured dwelling permits in the city of Deer Park.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you. Resolution 980, a resolution adopting a revised building fee schedule for mechanical permits in the city of Deer Park.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Resolution 981, a resolution adopting a revised building fee schedule for plumbing permits in the city of Deer Park.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution 982, a resolution adopting the revised miscellaneous fee schedule for building permits in the city of Deer Park.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And resolution 983, a resolution adopting revised planned site review fee schedule for building permits in the city of Deer Park.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and then are we on 980? Did I already do that? Okay, thank you. I think that takes care of that.
I don't think we missed any.
We got 6, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right. If you guys want to,
Thank you too.
get some sleep, you can go if you want. I mean, you can hang out and wait for the proclamation from the Red Cross, which is gonna be killer. Okay. So the next one on new business is the American Red Cross proclamation.
It's the last. It's in the packet, but it was the last.
Right, but it's third in the, yes, thank you, Justine. Everyone got it? Chad, would you read the synopsis and,
American Red Cross proclamation. The city was contacted by Janae Pearson, County Volunteer Liaison for the American Red Cross Cascades region, to request that March 2023 be declared American Red Cross Month. A form of proclamation was attached for consideration. The proclamation is on the back, and if the council so approves it,
you've got it written out that I gotta do this, so. Okay, American Red Cross Month 2023, a proclamation. Whereas in times of crisis, people in Gerhart come together to care for one another. This humanitarian spirit is part of the foundation of our community and is exemplified by the American Red Cross Cascades region volunteers and donors. And whereas in 1881, Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross, turning her steadfast dedication for helping others into a bold mission of preventing and alleviating people's suffering. Today, more than 140 years later, we honor the kindness and generosity of the Red Cross volunteers here in Gerhart who continue to carry out Clara's life-saving legacy. They join the millions of people across the US who volunteer, give blood, donate financially, or learn vital life-preserving skills through the Red Cross. And whereas in the Cascades region, serving Oregon and Southwest Washington, the contributions of more than 2,500 local Red Cross volunteers give hope to the most vulnerable in their darkest hours. The Red Cross does so by providing more than 600 emergency overnight shelter stays, along with food and comfort for families devastated by more than 800 local disasters like home fires. Through the generosity of those donating more than 182,000 units of essential blood for accident and burn victims, heart surgery, and organ transplant patients, and those receiving treatment for leukemia, cancer, or sickle cell disease, or by supporting service members and veterans an average of 9 times a day, along with their families and caregivers through the unique challenges of military life. And by helping to save the lives of others with first aid, CPR, and skills, or delivering, or other skills, or delivering international humanitarian aid. And whereas their work to prevent and alleviate human suffering is vital to strengthening our community's resilience, we dedicate this month to all those who continue to advance the noble legacy of the American Red Cross founder, Clara Barton, who lived by her words: "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it." We ask others to join in this commitment to give back in our community. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Carrie Smith of Gerhart, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of Gerhart, Clatsop County, and the Oregon State, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Red Cross Month. I encourage all citizens of Gerhart to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. And in witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the great seal of the city of Gerhart, state of Oregon, to be affixed this first day of March 2023. I'd like to see the seal. All right, emergency operations plan adoption. New business.
Mr. Mayor, so the city council reviewed and discussed the city's emergency operations plan, the EOP, updated at a work session held last month, and again on January 31st. I'm not sure what that was supposed to say, excuse me. This update is required for the city's hazard mitigation plan. It was paid for through an OEM, Office of Emergency Management grant program. Comments from both sessions have been implemented where possible within this final draft. Recommended motion, like the SRAM, no resolution or ordinance is necessary. A simple motion to adopt the city's updated emergency operations plan by a member of the council, and is what we need. The plan was last updated in 2009. City worked with Stantec on the update, which was done jointly with City Warden through the grants fund that the county obtained for us on the city's behalf, which was for $15,000. So we've had a chance to see the newest version of the plan. And we just look to adopt it and move forward with it.
I move that we adopt the city's updated emergency operations plan.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So passed.
Thank you, and thank you to the team for putting that together. That was a lot of work.
All right, the last and best. There's so many lines on this, I get bottled
Yeah.
down with
Is there some way to make this bigger?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're gonna make, Christie and I, through this process, we'll make a lot of different changes to this. We want to put some dates to when the project started and do a little bit more in the way of percentage of the project being finished and when it was supposed to be completed, because there is a lot of dates being missed. It's too small to read and the colors are a little bit, so we're gonna redesign this.
That's great.
I agree with you.
So the green, I can't see through the green. How about just doing yellow
Yeah, I'll let her know that we'll try to do some
and blue is
less, the dark colors are really kind of difficult to read through, the blue, red, and the green.
Oh, you mean all of them?
Yeah, I think I do. The most current version is attached and it'll need to be updated through the council preferences. So we've got these individual items on here, and is quite a bit of work we have done through this last year to get a lot of that done. There's still some, bonus, still some projects that we've not been able to get started. It's been a busy year. But the things that we have finished, we're working on the police chief recruitment. We've made improvements to the financial reporting thanks to Justine. We've also made basically across the board improvements to the financial department as it is through its operations. We've coordinated our planning office. We have done our gas fuel supply. We have the playground, 90%, 75% finished. We've worked on billing rates now, the OLCC license renewals, the audit improvement. We're still looking for the police officer, which we're going to be coming to you soon with that. Parks master planning was finished. State public contracting ordinance was finished. Seismic resiliency plan adopted. Tech updates, security cams and doors, low income water system program. Actually, that wasn't on there. Permitting and emergency operations plan. There are still quite a few projects that we'd like to get started. And then we just need to organize those, but we're also very interested in the other projects that the council would like to see the city staff work on. This will also be helpful through our budgeting process. So as per the synopsis, the city staff is looking at dates between March 20th and 24th, somewhere in there that we can have a work session, discuss city council goals, hear about what it is that you'd like to work on or for the staff to refocus on. We'll be able to better build the budget that way, and then we'll make changes to this sheet to make it a little bit easier.
So you're not gonna change the sheet before that work session?
Oh, we'll make it a little easier.
Okay, because right now it's like, all right. 20th through the 24th?
Yes, that's Monday. Well, we prefer Monday through Thursday, try to avoid the Friday if possible. So it'll be the 20th or the 21st, 22nd, Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday.
I'm good that way. The evening,
Okay.
the day we've got a budget, online budget class.
on good Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday.
I think we have a train, I think Carrie and I have.
Yeah, that's during the day.
Okay.
And I think that our for this as well. If you folks are okay with that. Works for Dana.
Are you hearing this, Austin?
Yeah.
An evening meeting sometime between 20th and the 24th in March? for goal setting?
I think I can do that.
Okay,
So how about I make a suggestion that we look at either the 21st or the 22nd, Tuesday or Wednesday.
That's good.
I'd like to hear what Justine has to say, since she has to be.
Either of those work. I prefer not the 20th. Already have a meeting that day, so thank you.
21st or the 22nd, Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll go ahead and reach out to you and finalize that date very soon. That gives us the options. And then, Mr. Mayor, you and I can work on the agenda for that.
all right, we're good on that?
Sir.
Austin, you have any council concerns?
I do not.
Preston?
Nope.
Rita? Nope. Dana?
Yes. So yesterday during our meeting, it was brought up and suggested, or asked if we were considering Seaside as a backup plan for, or maybe contracting with Seaside or another agency. And we didn't get into that yesterday because again, it would have taken our meeting off into the weeds. That wasn't the point of the conversation. And I really think that question was answered during the meeting by the comments and the traits that people raised that they were looking for in their department here that's serving Gerhardt. Let me start off with number one, our charter says that our police chief is one of our officers here. And I know that there are some people that may believe that we could maybe work our way around that or fudge our way around that and then contract with another agency. I personally am not comfortable with making a change to our charter or trying to get around our charter. If we're going to change our charter, then that needs to go out to a vote to the people. The people of Gerhardt need to decide that. I don't think that I would not feel comfortable doing that myself. And right now, at this point, I would not say I would not support putting it out to the people because I don't think we're there yet. I don't think that having considered the pros and the cons of contracting with another agency or going with our own agency, I'm not convinced that the pros of contracting with another agency outweigh the pros of having our own department yet. But yet we have to see how this recruitment process goes. We may not have a choice if we don't get any good viable candidates, but we're not there yet. One of the things that when I made that analysis and I came to that decision, one of the things that we worked on, particularly with Justine, she and I called some local agencies and found out what they're actually paying their officers. And I've been for a while, I have already had a sit-down meeting, an informal sit-down meeting with the sheriff. And we've done some inquiries with other agencies as far as what their staffing models are and that type of thing. Something to consider, just alone, we called Seaside. Seaside is paying their officers their starting pay for patrol officers, $20 more an hour than ours is. So you cannot tell me that there would not be a significant cost increase if we were to contract with them. That's just one of the issues. The other thing is that each department has its own staffing model. And a staffing model is what they have decided is appropriate for their agency, how they will serve a community. And we might have our ideas, like, for example, we're going to get by with just 3 officers, but 3 officers is not full-time coverage, just so you know. At minimum, in order to provide for full coverage, you have to have 4.2 officers. And since you can't get a 0.2 officer, technically to do it without overtime, you'd have to do 5 officers, okay? So working with another agency, you may or may not get them to agree to your numbers, but that's not an absolute. But at minimum, a law enforcement officer, we would be paying, we determined after salaries, benefits, and everything else for a bottom starting out patrol officer, we'd be paying $60,000 a year per officer, in addition to what we're paying now. That's a concern to me because we heard in the meeting yesterday that people are starting to become concerned with what's going on around us. Crime is up, crime is up. I mean, all you have to do is pick up the paper, you realize crime is up. there is a possibility at some point we may have to go to 4.2 officers or at least 4 officers here. And if we have to do that, I would much rather do it at our pay scale than at Seaside's pay scale. So that's something to consider. Another consideration is in regards to pay is risk. Our department here has done a very good job at controlling our risk. They haven't dragged us through a whole lot of lawsuits. We're not paying out on a whole bunch of things. We don't have control over that if we give that up to another agency, if we allow another agency to come in here. Another question that I think that was answered, I mean, it was pretty clear, I think, from that meeting yesterday, that the folks here in Gerhart expect a connection with their police department. They expect their police department to be committed to Gerhart and to know what's going on in Gerhart and to have a personal relationship with Gerhart and the people that are living here. And I would submit that I am a little nervous and I'm not convinced that we would get that level of care and attention and relationship if we asked another agency to come in here. Now, I am not denigrating any of the agencies around us. I think that they are probably doing a very, very good job, but I am not convinced that we are ready to overcome the hurdle of changing the charter. And I am not ready for us to make a decision that tries to get around the charter. I think that we need to stay at this moment. I am convinced that we need to stay with our own department or continue to pursue our own department, establish our own ethics, our own objectives for our own department until that is no longer a viable option. Because if you dissolve a department, as the mayor and I were speaking about this recently, we've been speaking about this for months, to be honest with you. And that is one of the considerations that I thought very strongly, I thought that was in our best interest initially to contract with another agency. And in some circumstances, it does make good sense. But one of the things that we discussed, and really it was a point that the mayor brought up, is once you dissolve an agency and you give up all of your equipment and you give up all of your control, if it doesn't work out, it's very tough to recreate that. It's very expensive. And it could be a hurdle that we would not be able to overcome. So it's not something we should just do quickly right now because a couple of people have said, I think you need to do this. I think that would be a decision that the entire public would have to vote on.
So I've talked to a number of police officers, you know, in and around Seattle, well, even Gabriel's down in Monmouth, down there. And we spoke about, like, around the Seattle area, they have a whole bunch of independent communities. So when those communities need to have an extra police officer or, you know, help or whatever it is, that they'll request it from the Seattle Police Department, and they'll go to the community, get in the community's uniform, get in the community's police vehicle, and patrol the area.
Correct.
So I would like in the, you know, I mean, if we're having problems since, I won't use the nicknames, but since Vince left, you know, we haven't, I mean, we've been paying a lot of overtime for 2 individuals to be able to try and make up for the 3rd guy, you know, and I can remember the discussion that Bruce and Maltman, who was the city administrator at the time, and Jeff had about wanting a 3rd officer. And the fact that we couldn't afford a 3rd officer unless he could find a, you know, an increased revenue source. So when they annexed the condos up there at the west and everything north, well, then that gave us the revenue source. And so we hired a 3rd officer. So in the interim, maybe in order to alleviate some of the overtime burden, and you know, you mentioned the fact that, you know, Jeff hasn't been able to spend any time at home.
Correct.
I'm not so sure about Officer Brown because he lives across the street from me and I see how much his car is there.
But I would suspect that he's working a lot of hours too.
A lot of on-call time there. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I would, you know, reach out to him and ask him whether or not we could borrow a police officer, have him come on over. I mean, it seemed to be fitting with uniform would be a hell of a lot cheaper than something else. And we've got a 3rd police car here. You know, and my idea about put it in addition to, or just park the police car somewhere down on F Street.
Right.
When
And
those kids come rolling around there.
Mhm. And that is a solution that agencies sometimes implement. I know if you drive, there's a certain area that you drive through in Nevada that they actually not only put out a police car, they put a dummy in there. And I'm
Exactly.
telling you, people slam on their brakes when they get around the corner and see that. So-
There's one going down to Coos Bay. They do the same thing. You come down this hill at night, and all of a sudden here's this cop car with a mannequin in it.
Right. Well, and just to be clear, we are getting into a pickle, and we've been in a pickle for a while. But we finally have some good officer candidates that I'm looking through them and I'm thinking, hey, we might have something there. So there might be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm still optimistic that we will find a police chief. I'm a little nervous about it, knowing the struggles with recruitment, but I'm optimistic. And if we do that, our police chief is a good bang for our buck, because like I said, he's doing two jobs, because again, getting back to what a contract or a staffing model would look like. Agencies around us do not necessarily use their police chief or somebody who's at the level of a police chief, a manager, as also a patrol function. So we'd have to pay for that in addition to our 3, and then maybe 4 somewhere down the road if it becomes necessary. But we also lose control of when they're going to work. So like right now, we could say, hey, car burglaries occur between typically 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning, and we don't have anybody covering that right now. It would be pretty easy for us to exert our authority and say we need to adjust this at least temporarily. When you're working with the chief complaint that other agencies had with my department when they would contract with us is they lost control. And we could tell them, nope, we're not going to do that. Or nope, that's not within our policies. So that is something to consider. But also remember that the jurisdiction, when we are unable to meet our needs, our community needs, the sheriff will always have jurisdiction here. He has jurisdiction throughout the entire county. Now, is he going to give us the level of service that we can provide for ourselves? No, but if we say help, he has to come. He has to. And he is. But I'm sure he's not going to wait. There's going to come a point where he's going to say, okay, that's enough. And I think we're getting there. So we do need to keep working this. I'm not saying that we need to go without a police chief, as some people have suggested that we'd be just fine without a police chief. We would not. We have to have a police chief. Our charter says so. And we really, supervision is expensive, but a lack of supervision is very expensive, or could be potentially.
Okay, now you brought up the fact that the police chief is a member of the,
He's an officer.
He's an officer.
Mr. Mayor, could I just interject? We don't have this as an agenda item on our agenda.
Okay.
And I'm getting a little bit concerned and we haven't had a third counselor interject. So I feel really good about that. But it sounds like this is kind of a robust discussion that we need to have. And I think we probably need to put it on the agenda, because I think it's probably a really important discussion for a lot of people in the community.
Point taken, and I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So we'll end that on that note, put it on the agenda as a discussion item. You won't. All right. I have no concerns at this time. I'm going to share. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, councilors. Appreciate the work.
Yes, thank you.